Welcome, sleepy minds, gentle wanderers of the night, and those drifting between thoughts and dreams. You've arrived at the Sleepy Scientist, where biology whispers and the body's secrets unfold like petals in the moonlight. Tonight, we turn our gaze inward to the quiet frame beneath it all. The anatomy of the skeleton, not just bones, but the silent scaffolding of our every breath, our every step, a cathedral of calcium and memory, holding us upright as we slowly float through time. Don't worry, this won't be a sprint through facts or a clattering of diagrams. This is soft science, spoken in slow tides, designed to lull and gently teach. I hope it's not too interesting. Though if you find yourself wide awake, blame the femur. If you feel cozy already, leave a like or let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are drifting? And if you're new here, press subscribe so we can explore more mysteries together, one yawn at a time. Now, let's begin with a question as light as marrow. Asterisk, asterisk, what are bones, really? Asterisk, asterisk, just support beams of biology, or ancient echoes of motion and memory. Let's lie back and drift down through the layers, through the quiet mineral garden beneath your skin, through cells that build, break, and rebuild. As we explore the architecture of you, imagine standing still, feet flat on the ground, eyes closed, breathing softly. Even without movement, your body is balancing, adjusting, and responding to gravity. And deep beneath your skin, a quiet architecture is holding you upright. This is your skeleton, not just a collection of bones, but a living structure, one that supports, protects, and shapes your entire form. It is easy to overlook. Bones feel passive. They do not beat like the heart. They do not pulse like blood vessels. They do not expand and contract like the lungs. And yet, without them, there would be no frame, no form, no movement. The human skeleton is both ancient and active. It begins forming before birth in the quiet shadows of the womb, and it stays with you until the very end, slowly changing, adapting, and even healing along the way. The average adult has 206 bones. Each one is carefully shaped for its role. Some are long and strong, like the thigh bone or femur. Some are flat like the bones that protect the brain. Others are tiny like those inside the ear, which help you hear. Together, these bones form a silent scaffold, one that gives the body its height, its posture, and its ability to move. But the skeleton is not just a frame. It is also a protector. The rib cage guards the lungs and heart. The skull surrounds the brain. The spine shelters the delicate cord of nerves that connects brain to body. This protective role is more than physical. In many cultures, the skeleton also symbolizes endurance. It is often the last part of the body to remain after death. It holds history. It holds stories. It holds the memory of motion, even when that motion has long stopped. But what exactly are bones? At first glance, they appear solid, hard, but inside they are full of life. Bone tissue is living tissue. It has its own cells, its own blood supply, and its own rhythm of change. Bones are constantly renewing themselves. They are not fixed like stone. They are more like living wood, growing, reshaping, repairing. Every day your body breaks down tiny parts of bone, and every day it builds them back up again. This balance keeps bones strong and ready for stress. It also helps them adapt. For example, A dancer's bones will change over time. They will grow denser in areas that carry the most strain. A person who lifts heavy objects or walks long distances will slowly reshape the very core of their structure. The skeleton is not one single system. It is divided into two main parts. The axial skeleton is the central column. It includes the skull, spine, and rib cage. This part supports the body's core. It protects vital organs. It helps maintain balance. The appendicular skeleton includes the arms, legs, shoulders, and hips. It allows movement. It gives us the ability to reach, walk, run, and carry. Together, these two parts form a complete frame, but they do not work alone. Bones connect to muscles through tough cords called tendons. When muscles contract, they pull on the bones. This creates motion. At each place where bones meet, called joints, movement becomes possible. Some joints are fixed, like those in the skull. Others, like the shoulder, are highly flexible. We will explore these more deeply in later sections. Bones are also home to something unexpected: blood. Inside many bones is a soft tissue called marrow. In the red marrow, blood cells are born. These cells will go on to carry oxygen, fight infections, and help the body heal. So, bones are not just dry and empty. They are nurseries, factories. They are part of the immune system and part of the circulatory system. Throughout life, bones tell a silent story. At birth, the skeleton is made mostly of cartilage, a soft, flexible material. As we grow, this cartilage is slowly replaced by hardened bone through a process called ossification. Even after we stop growing in height, bones continue to shift and adapt. In old age, bones may become thinner. They may lose minerals like calcium. This can lead to conditions like osteoporosis, where bones become fragile. But even then, they remain active, trying to rebuild what is lost. Around the world, skeletons are studied by scientists called osteologists. They examine the bones of ancient humans to learn how people lived, worked, and even what illnesses they faced. The skeleton also plays a key role in modern medicine. X-rays allowed doctors to see inside the body, using the density of bone to create images. Fractures can be seen, misalignments corrected, healing tracked. In emergencies, bone marrow transplants can save lives, and understanding bone biology helps us create better treatments for diseases that affect strength and mobility. So, the skeleton is not just about standing tall. It is about how we move, how we heal, how we grow. It is about memory in both a personal and evolutionary sense. As we begin our deeper journey through the parts of the skeleton, keep in mind every step, every breath, every quiet moment of stillness is supported by this silent structure within you. It is always there, holding, balancing, enduring, quiet, but never truly still. When we think of bones, we often imagine something dry, white, and lifeless, a skeleton in a museum, a fossil in the ground. But the truth is far more complex and far more alive. Imagine holding a bone in your hand. At first, it feels solid, dense, almost like stone, but that's only the surface. Beneath this hard outer shell lies a world of motion, of growth, of renewal. Every bone in your body is made of living tissue. It is strong, but not rigid, flexible, but not soft. It walks, a fine line between firmness and adaptability. That delicate balance is what allows bones to serve so many purposes: support, protection, and motion. Let us begin at the outermost layer. The surface of a bone is covered by a thin, tough membrane. This layer is called the periosteum. It wraps the bone like skin, carrying blood vessels and nerves. These vessels bring oxygen and nutrients. They also carry signals that tell the bone when to grow, when to repair, and when to reshape. Beneath the periosteum is the hard part, the compact bone. It forms the dense, smooth surface that gives bones their strength. But even this layer is not solid like metal. Blood can flow and cells can communicate. This is what allows bone to stay alive and responsive. Deeper inside, the structure begins to change. At the core of many bones is spongy bone. It is lighter, softer, and full of small, hollow spaces. This is not weakness, it is design. The gaps make the bone lighter so we can move easily. They create space for something essential: bone marrow. Bone marrow is the soft, jelly-like tissue found inside large bones. There are two types: red marrow and yellow marrow. Red marrow is responsible for making blood cells. It produces red cells that carry oxygen, white cells that fight infection, and platelets that help blood clot. This process is called hematopoiesis, a word that means blood creation. In children, almost all marrow is red. As we grow, some of it is replaced by yellow marrow. Yellow marrow stores fat and energy. In emergencies, it can even convert back into red marrow to make more blood cells. Are made of at the smallest level. At the microscopic scale, bone is a mixture of two main ingredients: minerals and proteins. The minerals give it strength. The proteins give it flexibility. The most important mineral in bone is calcium phosphate. It forms crystals that pack tightly together, giving bones their hard surface. This mineral makes up about 2/3 of the bone's total weight. It is what gives bone its firmness, its durability, and its ability to bear weight. But if bone were made of only mineral, it would be brittle, like chalk. Collagen is a strong, stretchy protein. It forms a soft framework, like scaffolding. Calcium crystals then fill in around this scaffold. The result is a material that is both tough and slightly flexible, strong enough to carry the body, flexible enough to resist breaking. If you were to remove all the minerals from bone, you could bend it like rubber. If you removed all the collagen, it would shatter like glass. Nature has blended the two perfectly. Now, think of bones not as stones, but as bridges. Every bridge must be strong enough to carry weight. Too rigid, and it will crack. Too soft, and it will collapse. Bones are the same. Their unique structure makes them one of the most efficient materials in nature that build, repair, and manage. 3 main types of cells live in bone. The first are osteoblasts. These are the builders. They lay down new bone tissue. They produce collagen and help mineral crystals form. They are active during growth, during healing, and during everyday wear and tear. The second are osteoclasts. These are the demolishers. They break down old or damaged bone. They do this by releasing acids that dissolve minerals. This process helps clear space for new growth. It also helps the body release calcium into the blood when needed. The third are osteocytes. These are the guardians They are former builders who now live buried inside the bone. They act like sensors monitoring stress, signaling damage, and guiding repairs. They help the skeleton stay strong and respond to change. Together, these three cells form a team. They balance destruction with creation, breakdown with rebuilding. This balance is called remodeling. It happens slowly over time, and it ensures that bone remains healthy throughout life. Now, think about calcium once more. Bones are the body's main storage site for calcium. But calcium is also needed for many other things: muscle contraction, nerve function, and even blood clotting. When blood calcium levels drop, the body can draw calcium out of bones. When calcium is plentiful, it is stored back in. This process is tightly regulated by hormones. One of them is parathyroid hormone, which increases calcium release from bones. Another is calcitonin, which helps deposit calcium back into bones. Can become weak even if calcium is present. So the strength of your bones is not just about what you eat. It is about how well your body balances storage, use, and renewal. Bone is not static. It is dynamic. It listens to your lifestyle. It responds to exercise. It adapts to stress. Weight-bearing activities, like walking or lifting, stimulate bone growth. When bones are used, they become denser. When they are not used, they begin to thin. And why bed rest or lack of movement can lead to weakness. It is also why aging must be met with action. Because, with age, bones naturally begin to lose mass. But this process can be slowed through nutrition, through movement, through awareness. What bones are made of is not just chemistry. It is a reflection of how life moves, how the body balances change, and how structure meets function. So next time you touch your wrist or press a hand to your chest, remember what lies beneath: not stone, not steel, but something far more elegant, a living bridge. Imagine a building under quiet, constant renovation, not loud, not rushed, but slow, careful, and continuous. Some workers add new material, some remove the old, and some simply watch, monitoring the structure for subtle signs of stress. Your bones are like that building, and inside them live three kinds of cells, each one with a unique role, each one essential to keeping your skeleton strong, flexible, and alive. These three cells are called osteoblasts, osteoclasts, and osteocytes. Their names may sound complex, but think of them this way. Osteo means bone, blasts are builders, clasts are breakers, and cytes are watcher cells that live in place. Let's begin with the builders. Osteoblasts are the active construction crew of the skeletal system. They work near the surface of bones, and their main job is to build new bone tissue. When new bone is needed, after an injury, during growth, or in response to exercise, osteoblasts get to work. They produce collagen, a strong and flexible protein that forms the base of bone structure. Then, they help gather minerals like calcium and phosphate, which settle into the collagen like tiny crystals. This combination makes bones strong, yet slightly bendable. Osteoblasts do not stay in one place forever. Some complete their task and move on, but many become part of the bone itself. When this happens, the osteoblast becomes trapped in the very tissue it helped build. It changes shape, it changes role, and it becomes the next kind of cell, an osteocyte. Osteocytes are the most common cells in bone. They are embedded deep within the hard tissue, living in small spaces called lacunae. But even though they are trapped, they are not silent. Each osteocyte sends out tiny extensions, like arms, that reach through narrow channels in the bone. These channels are called canaliculi. Through them, osteocytes connect with each other. They form a vast communication network, sensing pressure, movement, and damage. Think of osteocytes as caretakers. They do not build new bone, and they do not break it down, but they monitor the structure. They listen for stress, and when they detect a problem, they send chemical signals to call in help. If an area is under too much pressure, osteocytes might call for strengthening. If an area is unused, they might signal that it can be thinned. They are part scientist, part manager, always watching, always adjusting. Now let us meet the third type, the bone breakers. Osteoclasts do the opposite of osteoblasts. They remove bone tissue. At first, this may seem harmful. Why would the body want to break down its own bones? But this process, called resorption, is essential. Bone must remain dynamic. Too much old tissue can become brittle. Too little flexibility can lead to injury. Osteoclasts help reshape bone, clear away damaged areas, and make room for fresh growth. Osteoclasts are large cells with many nuclei. They attach themselves to the bone surface and form a sealed area. Within this space, they release acids and enzymes. These dissolve the mineral crystals and digest the protein framework. The broken down material is then absorbed into the body. The process is precise. It is not random destruction. It is careful removal, like pruning a tree or trimming a stone. So, we have the three main bone cells: osteoblasts building, osteocytes watching, osteoclasts breaking down. Together, they maintain a delicate balance. This balance is known as bone remodeling. It happens constantly throughout life. In young adults, nearly 10% of the skeleton is remodeled every year. In children, the rate is even higher. In older adults, it may slow down, but it never stops. Bone remodeling serves several purposes. First, it helps repair micro-damaged tiny cracks that occur from daily use. Second, it allows bones to adapt to stress. Bones used more often become denser. Bones under less stress become lighter. Third, remodeling helps regulate calcium levels in the blood. When calcium is low, osteoclastes break down bone to release it. When calcium is high, osteoblasts store it by forming new bone. This system is controlled by chemical messengers hormones. Two important hormones are parathyroid hormone and calcitonin. Parathyroid hormone increases activity in osteoclasts, raising blood calcium. Calcitonin reduces that activity, encouraging bone formation. Other hormones like estrogen and testosterone also play a role. They help maintain the balance between building and breakdown. When these hormone levels drop, such as during menopause, bone loss may speed up. This is one reason why osteoporosis, a condition where bones become fragile, is more common in older adults. The balance between osteoblasts and osteoclasts is not just about biology. It is influenced by your lifestyle. Exercise stimulates osteoblasts, especially activities that involve weight-bearing, like walking, climbing stairs, or lifting. In contrast, inactivity slows bone building, and bones can weaken. Nutrition matters too. Your bones need calcium, vitamin D, and protein to stay healthy. Without these, the balance shifts, and bone may be lost faster than it is replaced. There is a quiet wisdom in this system. A bone is never static. It listens to your needs. If you challenge it, it grows stronger. If you ignore it, it becomes lighter. And behind every change, every adaptation, every repair, stand these three cell types, working in harmony, balancing strength with renewal. So next time you move, when you bend, when you lift, when you reach, know that deep inside, a cellular symphony is playing. One cell builds, one cell breaks, one cell watches. Together, they make sure your skeleton is not just strong, but alive. Imagine holding a newborn's foot in your hand, small, soft, and flexible. It barely seems strong enough to hold weight, let alone walk. And yet, inside that tiny foot is the blueprint of a future adult skeleton. Bones that will stretch, strengthen, and reshape, guided by growth, movement, and time. Our bones are not born finished. At birth, many are only partially formed. What begins as a soft framework slowly transforms into the hard structure that supports an adult body. To understand how this happens, we begin with a material called cartilage. Cartilage is a firm, flexible tissue. You can feel it at the tip of your nose or the outer part of your ear. It is softer than bone, but still strong. And in the earliest stages of life, nearly the entire skeleton is made of cartilage. This cartilage acts like a mold. It gives bones their early shape. Then, slowly, bone tissue replaces the cartilage in a process called ossification. The word ossify means to turn into bone. Ossification begins before birth and continues through childhood and adolescence. It is guided by specialized cells. Osteoblasts, the bone builders, lay down layers of mineral and protein. Cartilage cells, called chondrocytes, slowly die off as bone takes their place. Most long bones, like the thigh bone or arm bone, grow in length from special regions called growth plates. These plates, also known as epiphyseal plates, are found near the ends of the bones. They contain a mix of cartilage and active bone cells. As cartilage cells multiply and expand, they push the ends of the bone outward. Osteoblasts follow behind, turning this new cartilage into solid bones. This is how bones grow longer. Growth plates are active throughout childhood and early teenage years, but they do not stay open forever. By late adolescence, these plates begin to close. Cartilage is completely replaced by bone, and when this happens, the bone stops growing in length. This closing of the growth plates marks the end of height increase. It usually happens between ages 16 and 18 in girls, and between 18 and 21 in boys. Though the exact timing varies, the process is part of natural development. But bone growth is not only about getting taller. Bones also grow in thickness. This is called appositional growth. It happens when new bone is added to the outer surface, while old bone is removed from the inner side. This keeps bones strong but not too heavy. It also helps shape them based on the stresses they face. For example, a child learning to walk puts new pressure on their leg bones. The skeleton responds. More bone is added where the stress is greatest, less bone where it is not needed. This ability to adapt is called remodeling. Remodeling does not stop after childhood. It continues throughout life. But during the early years. When bones are growing rapidly, this process is especially active. Now, consider this. A baby is born with around 270 bones. But by the time adulthood is reached, that number drops to 206. How is this possible? The answer lies in fusion. Many infant bones begin as separate parts, with gaps in between. Over time, they slowly fuse together. A clear example is the skull. At birth, the skull is made of multiple soft plates. They are separated by gaps called fontanelles. These gaps allow the head to be flexible during birth. They also give space for the rapidly growing brain. As the child grows, the skull bones gradually fuse. By age 2, most fontanelles are closed. By adulthood, the skull is a single protective unit. Another example is the lower spine. In infants, the bones of the tailbone, called coccygeal vertebrae, are separate. Over time, they fuse into a single structure known as the coccyx. So, the changing number of bones is not about loss, it is about connection. Bone growth is also closely tied to nutrition. Bones require calcium to harden. They also need phosphorus, magnesium, and vitamin D. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium from the gut. Without it, bones can remain soft, a condition called rickets in children. In many parts of the world, rickets was once common. Children growing up without enough sunlight or proper food developed bowed legs, weak bones, and delayed growth. Today, fortified foods and awareness have reduced this condition, but it remains a reminder of how closely bones depend on nourishment. Hormones also play a guiding role. Growth hormone, released by the pituitary gland in the brain, stimulates bone lengthening at the growth plates. Thyroid hormones regulate the pace, and sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone help bones grow faster during puberty. These hormones also signal when it's time to stop growing. When estrogen levels rise during late puberty, growth plates begin to close. This is why high estrogen levels in both boys and girls signal the end of height increase. Interestingly, growth hormone disorders can lead to striking changes. Too little growth hormone during childhood results in short stature. Too much can cause a condition called gigantism, where bones grow abnormally long. Even in adulthood, bones continue to respond to their environment. Think of athletes, such as gymnasts or runners. Their bones become denser, especially in areas under repeated stress. The body interprets these forces as a need for reinforcement. Osteoblasts go to work, increasing bone mass. In contrast, prolonged bed rest or zero-gravity environments can lead to bone thinning. Astronauts in space can lose significant bone density over time because their skeleton no longer bears weight. This shows how deeply bones depend on physical activity to maintain their strength. Bone growth is not just about size. It is about shaping the body to meet life's demands. It is about renewal, repair, and adaptation. From baby to adult, the skeleton transforms. It lengthens, it thickens, it fuses, it strengthens. But it also listens to movement, to nutrition, to need. And though we may not notice these changes, day to day, they are always underway, quietly crafting the frame that carries us forward. Imagine standing upright, eyes closed, and feeling the subtle sway of your body as you breathe. There is a quiet center holding you, balancing you, keeping you tall. This center is your spine, The spine is not just a backbone, it is a living axis, a flexible column of bone, muscle, and nerve. At first glance, the spine may seem simple, a vertical stack of bones, one atop the other. But inside that simplicity lies a structure of remarkable complexity. It is strong enough to bear the full weight of the body, yet flexible enough to twist, bend, and absorb shock. The human spine is made up of 33 bones, known as vertebrae, and prevent the bones from grinding against one another. Let us begin at the top. The uppermost part of the spine is the cervical region. It contains 7 vertebrae, labeled C1 through C7. These are the bones of the neck. The first cervical vertebra, called the atlas, supports the skull. It is named after the figure in Greek mythology who held up the world. The second vertebra, called the axis, allows the head to rotate. Together, these 2 bones give you the ability to nod and turn your head with ease. The cervical spine is light, flexible, and highly mobile. It allows for a wide range of motion essential for sight, balance, and communication. But this flexibility also makes it vulnerable to injury, especially in sudden movements or falls. Below the cervical region is the thoracic spine. This section includes 12 vertebrae, labeled T1 through T12. Each one connects to a pair of ribs. The thoracic spine is less mobile than the neck. This part of the spine forms a gentle curve, bending slightly outward. It is a stable, central anchor. Next comes the lumbar spine, located in the lower back. It consists of 5 large vertebrae, labeled L1 through L5. These bones are the largest. In the spine, they bear the most weight and absorb the greatest forces from lifting, walking, and running. The lumbar region allows for bending, twisting, and arching. Below the lumbar region is the sacrum, pelvis. It acts like a keystone, locking the pelvic bones together and forming the base of the spinal column. At the very bottom is the coccyx, or tailbone. It is made of 3 to 5 tiny fused vertebrae, though often considered a vestigial structure left over from our evolutionary past, still serves a purpose. Altogether, the spine forms for gentle curves. These curves are not flaws. They are essential for function. The cervical and lumbar regions curve inward. The thoracic and sacral regions curve outward. These alternating shapes create an S-like curve when viewed from the side. This structure acts like a spring, absorbing shock and distributing weight evenly with each step. Between the vertebrae are soft pads called intervertebral discs. Each disc has a tough outer ring and a soft, gel-like center. They allow movement and act as shock absorbers. Discs compress slightly when we stand or walk and rehydrate when we lie down. Over time, these discs can wear down, a process called degeneration. This may lead to back pain or stiffness. In some cases, the inner gel may push out through a weak spot, creating a herniated disc, which can press on nearby nerves. Running through the center of the spine is the spinal cord. It is a bundle of nerves that carries signals between the brain and the body. Each vertebra has a hole in its center, and together they form a protective tunnel from the spinal cord. Nerve roots exit through openings between the vertebrae. These nerves branch out to every part of the body: arms, legs, organs, and skin. They control movement. They transmit sensation. They keep the body in constant communication with the brain. Because of this, any injury or disease affecting the spine can have widespread effects. A problem in the cervical spine may affect the arms and hands. An issue in the lumbar spine may affect the legs or bladder. That is why spinal health is so important. Posture, movement, and alignment all play a role in preserving this central axis. Muscles and ligaments support the spine at every level. They keep it stable during rest and motion. When the core muscles are strong and balanced, spine can do its job efficiently. But when these muscles are weak or imbalanced, stress is placed on the bones and discs. Over time, this can lead to discomfort, fatigue, or injury. Around the world, back pain is one of the most common health complaints. It can be triggered by many factors: poor posture, heavy lifting, prolonged sitting, or lack of movement. In many cases, gentle stretching, mindful movement, and strengthening exercises can help prevent or relieve symptoms. The spine also changes with age. Bones may become thinner. Discs lose height and flexibility. Muscles may weaken. But these changes are not always harmful. They are part of the body's natural rhythm, and they can often be supported with care and awareness. Throughout life, the spine holds us. It allows us to move through the world with grace, to bow, to stretch, to turn, to lift a child, to carry a burden, to sit in stillness. It is our center, our silent support, our living axis. So the next time you stand tall or curl up to rest, pause for a moment and thank the gentle strength at your back. A tower of bone and nerve, balance and motion that holds you from head to tail. Imagine cradling a delicate object, fragile, irreplaceable, and alive. The human brain is just that, soft and intricate. It holds thought, memory, sensation, and awareness. And around it, nature has formed one of the most remarkable protective structures in the body. The skull. The skull is more than a helmet. It is a complex architecture of bone, a three-dimensional puzzle, not one solid piece, but many interlocking parts. At birth, this structure is incomplete. The bones of a baby's skull are not yet fused. These fontanelles allow the skull to compress slightly during birth and make room for rapid brain growth during infancy. As the child grows, the fontanelles slowly close. Sutures. These sutures are not just cracks. They are living joints of fibrous tissue, strong and slightly flexible. The adult skull consists of 22 bones. Most of them are flat and curved, joined immovably at the sutures. Together, they form two main regions, the cranium and the facial skeleton. The cranium is the vault that encloses and protects the brain. It is made of 8 bones. At the base is the occipital bone, which contains a large opening called the foramen magnum, the gateway through which the spinal cord connects to the brain. Of the inner ear, these bones help us hear, balance, and orient ourselves in space. Above the eyes sits the frontal bone, forming the forehead and the upper part of the eye sockets. Behind that lies the parietal bones, 2 large plates that form the sides and roof of the skull. And deep within the center, almost hidden, are the ethmoid and sphenoid bones, which support the nasal cavity and act as central hubs connecting multiple other bones. The cranial bones are not thick, but their curved shapes give them great strength. Like the arch of a bridge, they can resist external forces without cracking easily. Inside the cranium, the surface is not smooth. Grooves, ridges, and depressions, mark the passage of blood vessels, and support different parts of the brain. The base of the skull, the floor upon which the brain rests, is called the cranial base. It is intricately shaped, with hollows that cradle each brain lobe. Openings in the base allow cranial nerves and blood vessels to pass in and out, connecting the brain to the rest of the body. This is the framework of the face, made up of 14 bones. They shape our expressions, form the nasal cavity and sinuses, and house the upper and lower teeth. The maxilla is the upper jawbone. It holds the upper teeth and forms the floor of the orbits. Only movable bone in the skull. It allows us to chew, speak, and express ourselves. The zygomatic bones, or cheekbones, form the sides of the face. The nasal bones shape the bridge of the nose, while the lacrimal bones, among the smallest in the body, help support the tear ducts. Together, these bones support soft tissues, like muscles and glands, and form cavities that protect vital senses: vision, smell, taste, and hearing. One of the most fascinating features of the skull is the orbit, the eye socket. It is not a simple hole, but a deep, complex cavity formed by 7 different bones. Another important structure is the sinus. These are hollow spaces within certain bones of the skull, most notably the frontal, maxillary, ethmoid, and sphenoid bones. They lighten the weight of the skull, produce mucus, and help warm and moisten the air we breathe. The bones of the skull are filled with tiny canals. These canals carry arteries that supply the brain, as well as veins that return blood to the heart. Small holes, called foramina, allow cranial nerves to exit the skull and reach their targets in the body. For instance, the optic canal allows the optic nerve to pass from the brain to the eyes. The jugular, foramen, and carotid canal transmit major blood vessels. Each opening has a name, a shape, a function. The skull is not merely passive armor. It is a living, growing structure. It reflects age, health, and even ancestry. Over time, the skull changes subtly. Bones may thin with age. Teeth may be lost, altering the shape of the jaw. And although the skull seems rigid, it is connected to the rest of the body by soft tissues, muscles, tendons, ligaments, and fascia. These tissues allow expression, chewing, and movement. They tie the head to the neck, the face to the spine. So the next time you feel your forehead or rub your temples, consider what lies beneath. A fusion of form and function. A vault for the mind. A mask for the senses. A shelter shaped by evolution, strengthened by design. This is the skull, guardian of the brain, frame of identity, and silent sentinel of thought. Imagine the human body as a great machine, not one made of gears and pistons, but of living tissue, muscle, and bone. Its movement is powered by invisible forces, directed by intention, and shaped by evolution. At the center of this system are the arms and legs, our limbs. They are not simple appendages. They are carefully designed structures, with long bones acting as levers, joints acting as pivots, and muscles providing the pull. A lever, in physics, is a rigid bar that rotates around a fixed point, called the fulcrum. When a force is applied to one end, it moves something on the other. In the human body, bones act as levers, joints serve as fulcrums, and muscles apply the force. This arrangement allows for both powerful and precise movements. Let us begin with the upper limbs. Each arm is composed of 3 main segments: the upper arm, the forearm, and the hand. At the top is the humerus, the long bone of the upper arm. It connects the shoulder to the elbow. Below that are the radius and ulna, 2 bones of the forearm that run parallel to each other and meet at the wrist. The shoulder joint, or glenohumeral joint, is a marvel of mobility. It is a ball and socket joint, where the round head of the humerus fits into the shallow socket of the scapula, or shoulder blade. This arrangement allows the arm to move in almost every direction: up, down, forward, backward, and in circles. But this mobility comes at a cost. The shallow socket makes the joint less stable. That is why the shoulder depends heavily on soft tissues, muscles, tendons, and ligaments to hold it in place. The rotator cuff is a group of 4 muscles, and their tendons that surround the shoulder joint. They stabilize the humerus, keeping it centered in the socket during movement. These muscles also help rotate and lift the arm, hence the name. At the elbow, the humerus meets the radius and ulna. This joint acts like a hinge, allowing the arm to bend and straighten. Rotation of the forearm, such as when turning a doorknob, is made possible by the interaction between the radius and ulna. One bone rotates around the other, enabling pronation and supination movements essential for daily tasks. The hand is a masterpiece of complexity and function. It contains 27 bones arranged in the wrist, palm, and fingers. The carpals form the wrist, the metacarpals support the palm, and the phalanges make up the fingers. This structure allows for both strength and delicacy, holding a heavy bag or threading a needle. Now, consider the lower limbs. They are built for strength, support, and locomotion. Each leg, like the arm, has 3 main segments: the thigh, the leg, and the foot. The femur, or thigh bone, is the longest and strongest bone in the human body. It connects the hip to the knee and bears the weight of the upper body during standing and movement. Its upper end fits into the acetabulum, a deep socket in the pelvis, forming the hip joint. The hip is another ball and socket joint. But unlike the shoulder, the socket is deep and reinforced by strong ligaments. This makes the hip more stable but less mobile. It is designed to support the body's weight during walking, running, and standing. Below the femur are the tibia and fibula, the bones of the lower leg. The tibia, or shin bone, bears most of the weight. The fibula is thinner and provides stability to the ankle and support to the muscles. The knee joint is where the femur meets the tibia. It is the largest and one of the most complex joints in the body, though it acts like a hinge, allowing the leg to bend and extend. It also allows slight rotation when the knee is bent. The patella, or kneecap, is a small bone that sits in front of the knee joint. It protects the joint and enhances the force of the quadriceps, the muscles at the front of the thigh, by improving their leverage. Inside the knee, menisci, crescent-shaped cartilage pads cushion the joint and distribute weight. Ligaments, such as the anterior cruciate ligament ACL and posterior cruciate ligament PCL, stabilize the joint by preventing excessive forward and backward motion. Farther down, the ankle connects the leg to the foot. It is a hinge joint formed by the tibia, fibula, and talus. It allows the foot to move up and down, and, with help from surrounding joints, to rotate and adapt to uneven ground. The foot is an engineering marvel of balance and flexibility. It contains 26 bones arranged in arches that absorb shock and adjust to movement. The tarsals form the heel and midfoot. The metatarsals create the ball of the foot, and the phalanges form the toes. Together, they support walking, standing, and balance. The lower limbs are also equipped with large, powerful muscles. The gluteal muscles in the buttocks, the quadriceps in the front of the thigh, the hamstrings at the back, and the gastrocnemius and soleus in the calf all work together to propel the body forward. Just as in the arms, bones in the legs serve as levers. Muscles contract to pull on tendons, which move the bones. This system allows for both sudden bursts of power, like jumping, and controlled motion, like walking uphill. Joints must balance. Strength with flexibility. Too much mobility without control can lead to dislocation. Too much rigidity can limit motion and cause wear. The shoulder, elbow, hip, and knee are examples of how this balance is achieved through shape, tissue, and interaction. Ligaments provide stability. Cartilage cushions movement. Muscles guide direction and strength. In moments of stillness, the limbs rest, yet, even at rest, their structure reflects readiness, a quiet potential for movement, an equilibrium of bone, tissue, and force. From throwing a ball to climbing a staircase, from typing to dancing, our arms and legs carry out tasks that seem effortless. Yet behind each motion lies a choreography of levers and pulls, pivots and glides. They are not just limbs, they are instruments of intention, levers of motion, forged by anatomy and refined by evolution. Consider, for a moment, your hand, resting quietly at your side or moving across a page. It contains within it a structure of extraordinary complexity. And now, think of your foot hidden in a shoe, perhaps, but bearing your full weight with every step. Both the hand and the foot are made not of simple structures, but of intricate assemblies of bones, joints, ligaments, and muscles. Each one is a masterpiece of design, formed for very different, yet equally vital, purposes. Let us begin with the hand. The human hand is composed of 27 bones. These include 8 carpal bones in the wrist, 5 metacarpal bones in the palm, and 14 phalanges in the fingers. Though these numbers may seem small, their arrangement allows for an astonishing range of movement and precision. The wrist, or carpus, forms the base. Its 8 small bones are arranged in 2 rows. These bones do not move independently, but together they allow the hand to tilt, twist, and flex. The wrist's range of motion is due not only to these bones, but to the surrounding ligaments and tendons that stabilize and direct their movements. Extending from the wrist are the 5 metacarpals. These long bones form the framework of the palm. They are not rigid. They allow for subtle movements, especially during gripping or weight-bearing. They serve as bridges between the wrist and the fingers. Each finger, including the thumb, is composed of phalanges, the small bones that make up the segments. The thumb has 2 phalanges, while each of the other fingers has 3. These bones allow the fingers to bend at multiple joints, making it possible to perform tasks that range from forceful grasping to delicate threading of a needle. The thumb is a special case. It is set at an angle to the other fingers and can move across the palm movement called opposition. This single adaptation is key to what makes the human hand so powerful. It enables us to grasp objects, manipulate tools, and perform fine motor tasks with remarkable control. Ligaments, which connect bone to bone, provide stability in the hand. Tendons, which connect muscles to bone, allow movement. The tendons that move the fingers originate in muscles located in the forearm. They pass through narrow tunnels in the wrist and palm, gliding within protective sheaths. These sheaths contain synovial fluid, which reduces friction, allowing for smooth motion even under repetitive use. This system is so refined that a pianist's fingers can strike keys with rapid precision, and a surgeon's hands can suture with extraordinary delicacy. Now let us move to the foot. Also composed of 26 bones, the human foot is designed primarily for support and locomotion. Its bones are divided into 3 regions: the tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. The tarsals form the rear and midfoot. This group includes the calcaneus or heel bone and the talus, which connects the foot to the leg. These bones absorb impact when the foot strikes the ground and provide a stable base during standing or walking. The metatarsals, like those in the hand, form the bridge of the foot. They distribute weight and maintain balance. Each connects to a toe, which, like the fingers, contains phalanges. The big toe has 2, and the remaining toes have 3. But the foot is not simply a flat structure. It contains arches, both longitudinal and transverse. These arches act like springs, absorbing shock and adapting to different surfaces. They allow the foot to be both rigid and flexible, depending on the task. The medial longitudinal arch, which runs along the inner side of the foot, is the most prominent. It is supported by ligaments and by muscles that run from the leg down to the sole. This arch is critical for efficient walking and running. When it flattens or collapses, it can lead to pain and altered movement. The lateral arch and transverse arch provide additional support and stability. They work together to create a shape that adjusts to terrain and maintains posture. This system allows the foot to serve as both a lever for pushing off the ground and a cushion for impact. While the hand is built for manipulation, the foot is built for movement and load-bearing. Yet both rely on small bones arranged with extraordinary care. The strength of the foot comes not from rigid mass, but from its geometric structure, its ability to distribute forces and adapt to motion. The ankle joint, where the tibia and fibula of the leg meet the talus of the foot, allows for dorsiflexion and plantarflexion, the lifting and pointing of the foot. Side-to-side movement is more limited, which adds to stability during walking. Muscles of the foot and lower leg work together through long tendons to control movement. The Achilles tendon, the thick band at the back of the ankle, connects the calf muscles to the heel. It stores elastic energy and releases it during walking and running. Both hands and feet are rich with sensory receptors. These receptors detect pressure, texture, vibration, and position. This is why we can feel the shape of an object with our fingertips or adjust our balance on uneven ground without thinking. Consider this: nearly 1/4 of all the bones in the human body are found in the hands and feet alone. This concentration of small, finely tuned structures enables us to interact with the world in profound ways through touch, motion, gesture, and locomotion. From writing and painting to running and dancing, these structures adapt fluidly. Their complexity is silent, yet ever present. They make possible the routine and the remarkable. The next time you grasp a cup or take a step, remember, your hand and foot are not simple tools. They are living instruments, refined through evolution, sustained by biology, and capable of incredible range. Masterpieces of design, silent, subtle, and essential. Imagine a fortress built not of stone, but of bone and breath. This is the rib cage, an elegant, living shield that both protects and moves. It houses the heart and lungs, two organs vital to life, yet vulnerable to harm. But this cage is no prison. It is dynamic. It expands and contracts with every breath, softening its strength to make room for motion. The rib cage is formed by 12 pairs of ribs, the sternum and the thoracic vertebrae of the spine. Together, these components create the thoracic cavity, the hollow chamber within the chest. It is not simply a wall of protection. It is an active participant in one of the body's most rhythmic tasks, breathing. Let us begin with the ribs. There are 24 ribs, in total 12, on each side. They curve around from the spine toward the front of the chest, like arching fingers cradling the internal organs. The first 7 pairs are known as true ribs. Each of these connects directly to the sternum via flexible bands of cartilage called costal cartilages. These cartilaginous links allow some give some movement during inhalation and exhalation. The next 3 pairs are called false ribs. They do not connect directly to the sternum. Instead, they attach to the cartilage of the ribs above them, forming a more flexible portion of the rib cage. The last 2 pairs, the floating ribs, are short and do not attach to the sternum at all. They end freely in the muscles of the abdominal wall. Though smaller and more mobile, they still serve an important role in stabilizing the lower thorax and protecting the upper abdominal organs, such as the kidneys. The sternum, or breastbone, lies at the center front of the chest. It is a flat, elongated bone divided into 3 parts: the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. At the top, the manubrium connects with the collarbones and the first pair of ribs. The body forms the long middle section, and the xiphoid process marks the lower tip. Behind the rib cage runs the thoracic spine, composed of 12 thoracic vertebrae. Each rib is anchored to a corresponding vertebra by strong joints and ligaments. This spinal connection is crucial. It allows the rib cage to move in harmony with the back and shoulders, adapting to posture, breath, and motion. Though protective in design, the rib cage must also be supple enough to change shape. For every breath you take, the ribs shift outward and upward. This movement is called the bucket handle motion, where the ribs swing like the handle of a bucket, lifting to expand the chest cavity. The diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle beneath the lungs, contracts and flattens during inhalation, drawing air into the lungs. At the same time, the ribs lift and spread, increasing the space within the thoracic cavity. This allows the lungs to inflate fully. During exhalation, the diaphragm relaxes, and the ribs return to their resting position, gently squeezing air out. The rib cage, therefore, does not merely shield the lungs, it partners with them. This coordinated expansion and contraction is subtle but powerful. You may not feel each rib moving, but collectively they create the gentle rhythm of breathing, about 12 to 20 times per minute in a resting adult. Inside this protective enclosure lie the lungs, the heart, major blood vessels like the aorta, and delicate nerves. The rib cage acts like armor for these organs, reducing the risk of trauma from external forces. And yet, It must also accommodate the expansion of the lungs during deep breaths, laughter, or exertion. The ability of the rib cage to flex without breaking is due in part to the costal cartilage, which provides both connection and elasticity. As we age, this cartilage may become more rigid. Breathing can become shallower, and the rib cage less compliant. This is one reason why older adults may feel more breathless during physical activity. Injuries to the rib cage, such as fractures, can be especially painful. This is because the ribs are involved in nearly every movement of the torso and every breath. A single cracked rib can make deep inhalation difficult, highlighting just how central these bones are to everyday life. In some conditions, such as pectus excavatum or pectus carinatum, the shape of the rib cage may be altered. These congenital deformities affect the appearance and function of the chest wall and can sometimes impact breathing or heart function. The rib cage is also tied to the immune system. Within the sternum lies red bone marrow, a site of active blood cell production. It produces red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelet-key components of the circulatory and immune systems. In early childhood, the rib cage grows rapidly, expanding to accommodate the increasing size of the lungs and heart. Its shape and flexibility adapt over time, influenced by genetics, nutrition, and posture. The rib cage even plays a role in speech. Air pushed from the lungs passes through the vocal cords, creating sound. The volume and pace of our voice are controlled by the pressure and timing of this airflow, both regulated by the chest wall. In moments of fear or exertion, the rib cage responds instantly. Muscles surrounding it, such as the intercostal muscles, contract more forcefully, aiding in rapid breathing. These muscles lie between the ribs, layering the space like woven fabric, stabilizing and expanding the cage as needed. Despite its strength, the rib cage is not rigid armor. It is a living, responsive structure that balances protection with motion. It houses the most fragile organs, yet bends to allow them to function fully. With every breath, your ribs quietly rise and fall. With every beat, your heart is cradled within this bony frame. The chest is not simply a barrier between the world and the heart. It is a carefully engineered space where structure meets rhythm and safety meets motion. A living shield, soft in movement, strong in purpose, and essential to life. Where two bones meet, movement begins. This meeting place is called a joint, or more formally, an articulation. Joints do not simply connect bones, they enable life to bend, stretch, twist, and glide. They are the silent facilitators of motion, found everywhere from the jaw to the toes. Without joints, our skeleton would be a rigid frame, but with them, we gain fluidity. We can walk, grasp, nod, and breathe because bones can move relative to one another. Let us begin with classification. Joints are often grouped based on how much movement they allow. Some joints allow no movement at all. These are called fibrous joints. An example is the sutures of the skull where bones are interlocked and fused, forming a solid barrier around the brain. They protect rather than move. Other joints allow slight movement. These are cartilaginous joints, where bones are connected by cartilage. The joints between the vertebrae of the spine are a prime example. They provide limited motion while maintaining stability. But the most familiar joints are synovial joints. These are freely movable and found in places like the shoulders, knees, fingers, and hips. They are the most complex and functionally rich of all joint types. Imagine the structure of a typical synovial joint. At its core are two bones, whose ends are coated in articular cartilage. This smooth, white tissue reduces friction and absorbs shock. The bones do not touch directly. Instead, they are separated by a narrow joint cavity filled with synovial fluid, a thick, slippery liquid that lubricates the joint. This entire assembly is wrapped in a joint capsule, a fibrous sheath lined with a thin membrane, called the synovial membrane, which secretes the synovial fluid. Outside the capsule, ligaments connect bone to bone, reinforcing the joint and limiting excessive movement. Nearby tendons connect muscle to bone, transmitting force for movement. Let us explore the major types of synovial joints, each allowing different kinds of motion. The ball and socket joint allows the widest range of movement. In this type, a spherical head of one bone fits into the rounded cavity of another. The shoulder and hip are classic examples. These joints allow movement in multiple planes, forward, backward, sideways, and rotational. Next is the hinge joint. It permits motion in a single plane, much like a door hinge. The elbow, knee, and the joints of the fingers are hinge joints. They allow bending and straightening, known as flexion and extension. Then there are pivot joints, where one bone rotates around another. The joint between the first and second vertebrae of the neck, the atlas and axis, is a pivot joint. It enables the head to turn from side to side. Condyloid joints, also called ellipsoid joints, allow movement but no rotation. The wrist joint is an example. It permits flexion, extension, and side-to-side movement, but not a full circle. Saddle joints resemble a rider in a saddle. Both bones have concave and convex regions that interlock. The base of the thumb contains a saddle joint, granting it the ability to oppose the fingers, a movement critical for grasping. Finally, gliding joints, or plane joints, allow bones to slide past each other. These are found between the small bones of the wrists and ankles. They permit subtle shifts and alignments rather than dramatic motion. Each joint type serves a specific purpose. Some prioritize mobility, others stability. Rarely can both be maximized. The shoulder, for instance, sacrifices some stability for greater freedom of movement. In contrast, the hip joint is more stable but slightly less mobile. The knee deserves special attention. It is the largest and one of the most complex joints in the body. Though often classified as a hinge joint, it also allows a small degree of rotation and side-to-side motion when flexed. It includes not only bones and cartilage, but also menisci, crescent-shaped pads of cartilage that cushion and stabilize the joint. Strong ligaments, such as the anterior cruciate ligament, axial, prevent excessive forward or backward movement of the tibia beneath the femur. The temporomandibular joint, or TMJ, connects the jaw to the skull. It allows us to chew, speak, and express emotion. It is a modified hinge joint that permits both opening and lateral motion of the mouth. As we move through life, joints endure constant pressure. They absorb the weight of the body, the impact of steps, and the repetitive motions of daily tasks. Over time, joints may wear down. Conditions such as osteoarthritis involve the breakdown of articular cartilage, leading to pain and stiffness. In rheumatoid arthritis, the synovial membrane becomes inflamed, attacking the joint's own tissues. These conditions highlight the delicate balance joints must maintain between movement and integrity. Some joints can hyperextend, bending beyond their normal range. This may be harmless in flexible individuals, or damaging in the case of injury. Overuse, sudden impact, or genetic predisposition can all affect joint health. To support joint function, the body relies on synovial fluid, strong muscles, and healthy cartilage. Regular movement helps nourish joints by promoting circulation of synovial fluid. Inactivity, conversely, can cause joints to stiffen. In athletic or high-stress environments, joints are often supported with braces or wraps. These do not replace ligaments or tendons, but offer external reinforcement. Interestingly, joint cracking, that familiar pop in the knuckles, is thought to be caused by the rapid release of gas bubbles from the synovial fluid. It is generally harmless, though excessive or painful cracking may suggest underlying issues. During fetal development, joints begin as simple cartilage models. As the skeleton ossifies, joints form specialized structures based on genetic instructions and mechanical forces. In early life, joints are more flexible. Children often show an extraordinary range of motion, which decreases with age. Hormonal changes, mechanical stress, and lifestyle all influence joint health over time. Evolution has shaped our joints in response to movement demands. The upright posture of humans required realignment of the hip and knee joints for efficient walking. Our opposable thumbs and saddle joints enabled tool use. Our pivoting neck joints expanded the range of sight and awareness. In every gesture, from turning a page to lifting a child, joints work silently behind the scenes, each one a marvel of structure and function, designed to bridge rigid bones with graceful motion. So next time you reach, step, twist, or nod, remember, movement happens because of joints. Where bones meet, motion is born. Bones are strong, but they are not unbreakable. Under sudden force, sharp impact, or long-term stress, even the most solid of bones can give way. But unlike stone or steel, bone is alive. It breaks, but it also repairs. When a bone is fractured, the body does not simply patch the damage, it rebuilds it from within, layer by layer. A fracture is the technical term for a broken bone. Fractures come in many forms, shaped by the direction, force, and type of trauma. Some are clean, straight breaks. Others are twisted, crushed, or shattered into many pieces. A simple fracture refers to a break where the bone does not pierce the skin. It remains enclosed within the body's natural defenses. In contrast, a compound fracture breaks through the skin, exposing bone and increasing the risk of infection. These are more severe and demand immediate care than there are green stick fractures, more common in children. Because young bones are more flexible, they may bend and crack without fully breaking, much like how a green twig bends under pressure. Comminuted fractures occur when the bone shatters into multiple fragments, often from high-energy impacts like vehicle accidents. Spiral fractures twist around the bone, caused by rotational forces, and stress fractures, tiny cracks from repeated strain, are common in athletes and soldiers. But no matter the form, every fracture sets in motion a quiet, intricate response. The process of healing begins immediately, often before medical attention is even received. First comes inflammation. Blood vessels damaged by the fracture leak blood into the area, forming a clot known as a fracture hematoma. This clot is more than just a plug. It is a biochemical signal. It brings in immune cells and specialized molecules that clean out damaged tissue and prepare for rebuilding. Swelling and pain may occur during this stage, signaling the body to protect the area. Over the next several days, the body forms a soft callus. This is made from fibrocartilage, a flexible but sturdy material that bridges the gap between broken bone ends. Fibroblasts lay down collagen fibers, while chondroblasts begin producing cartilage. This temporary scaffold holds the broken pieces in place and provides a stable environment for new growth. Around the second or third week, the soft callus is gradually replaced by a hard callus. Here, osteoblasts, the bone-building cells, begin depositing new bone tissue. They lay down a network of minerals, primarily calcium phosphate, that hardens over time. This stage transforms the soft connection into a rigid bony bridge, restoring mechanical strength. The final stage is remodeling. Over the next several months, sometimes even years, osteoclasts and osteoblasts reshape the callus. Excess material is removed. The bone is smoothed and realigned. Microscopic patterns in the bone, known as trabeculi, are reestablished. According to mechanical demands, eventually, the bone may appear almost identical to how it was before the injury. Healing is faster and more complete in younger individuals. As we age, the body's ability to regenerate slows. Factors such as nutrition, blood supply, movement, and underlying health conditions all influence recovery. For example, vitamin D and calcium are essential for strong bone regrowth. Conditions like osteoporosis, which reduce bone density, can prolong or complicate healing. Medical intervention often assists the process. Fractures that are misaligned may need reduction, a procedure to realign the bone ends. This can be done manually or surgically. In some cases, doctors use internal fixation, such as metal plates, screws, or rods, to hold the bone together. Alternatively, external fixation involves stabilizing the bone with structures outside the body, connected by pins that pass through the skin. Immobility is crucial during early healing. Casts, slings, or braces limit movement, allowing the callus to solidify undisturbed. However, gentle movement after the initial phase helps stimulate circulation and strengthen surrounding tissues. Some fractures, especially in areas with poor blood flow, may develop complications. Delayed union means the bone is healing slower than expected. Non-union refers to cases where the bone fails to heal altogether. And malunion occurs when the bone heals, but in a misaligned position. These situations may require surgical correction or bone grafting. Bone grafts use material from the patient's own body, a donor, or synthetic substitutes to provide a foundation for new growth. They are often used in severe or complex fractures, or when the original bone is unable to repair itself adequately. Interestingly, the bone's healing process shares similarities with its growth during development. The same cells and molecular signals are involved. It is as though the body reawakens its early construction plans to respond to injury. Research in tissue engineering and regenerative medicine is exploring new ways to enhance bone healing. Biodegradable scaffolds, growth factors, and even stem cells may one day assist or replace traditional treatments. Already, orthopedic medicine has seen advances that allow faster recovery and more precise reconstruction. Though it may appear passive, bone healing is a symphony of activity. Every stage, from clotting to remodeling, is tightly regulated and deeply coordinated. It is a process that mirrors construction demolition, scaffolding, building, and polishing performed by invisible hands. Consider this: even while resting, even while unaware, your body is capable of rebuilding what has been broken, quietly, patiently, and often perfectly. Like a skilled mason restoring a cracked wall, it does not rush. It follows its own pace, restoring strength, form, and function. The next time you hear the word fracture, do not imagine only damage, imagine repair. Because within every break lies the blueprint for restoration. Bones are more than structures, they are storytellers. Long after the skin has faded and the muscles have quieted, the skeleton remains, whispering tales of how a person lived, moved, ate, and even how they died. Across cultures and centuries, bones have held both scientific value and spiritual meaning. They speak to the biological and the symbolic, the physical and the cultural. Consider this: a single human skeleton can reveal age, sex, height, and patterns of activity. It may carry signs of injury, disease, childbirth, or repetitive motion. Teeth, in particular, preserve clues about diet and nutrition, while the wear of joints can tell us how the body was used in life. This is the science of osteology, the study of bones, and it forms the core of both forensic and archaeological investigation. In ancient Egypt, bones were not hidden or discarded, they were preserved. Mummification was more than a method of burial. It was an art of anatomical preservation. Priests carefully wrapped bones and organs, layer by layer, believing that the preserved body was essential for the soul's journey in the afterlife. Even today, these mummies offer scientists a glimpse into the health, medicine, and rituals of a civilization thousands of years old. In other cultures, bones were seen as sacred or powerful. Among the ancient Celts, bones, especially skulls, were considered vessels of spirit and strength. Skulls were kept, honored, even embedded into architecture thought to carry wisdom or protection. In the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, Carpals skull bowls were used in sacred rituals, not as morbid objects, but as reminders of impermanence and spiritual discipline. Across Africa, Asia, and the Americas, bones have been used as musical instruments, tools, and ornaments. In many Native American cultures, bone whistles and flutes were carved with great care, used in ceremonies to call rain or signal the spirits. These instruments connected sound to the sacred, reminding people that bones carry more than weight, they carry resonance. In medicine, bones have been both source and subject. In traditional Chinese medicine, tiger bones were once believed to hold healing power, ground into powders to treat joint pain. Though this practice has largely been abandoned due to conservation concerns, it reflects a deeper belief that bones contain energy, essence, and even memory. The modern world sees bones through a different lens: scientific, analytical, clinical. But even here, bones are full of meaning. X-rays, invented in the late 19th century, revolutionized medicine by allowing us to see inside the body without cutting it open. For the first time, doctors could diagnose fractures, deformities, and tumors by studying the shadows cast by bones. This quiet technology changed how we understand injury, disease, and healing. In the field of forensic anthropology, bones serve justice. Experts study the remains of the deceased to determine cause of death, identity, and the circumstances surrounding a person's final moments. This discipline helps solve crimes, identify victims of disasters, and bring closure to families. Bones, in this context, become silent witnesses. Art has long drawn inspiration from the skeletal form. From Leonardo da Vinci's anatomical sketches to Day of the Dead imagery in Mexico, the bone has served as a symbol of both life and death. In Mexico, Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, celebrates ancestors with sugar skulls, skeleton figurines, and marigolds. Here, bones are not feared, but embraced, celebrated, decorated. Skulls have also appeared in European art as memento mori, reminders of mortality, painted into corners of portraits, carved into tombstones, or held in the hands of philosophers. The skull symbolized the passing nature of life, urging contemplation and humility. In contemporary science, paleontology uses fossilized bones to unlock the secrets of ancient life. Dinosaur bones tell us about creatures that lived millions of years ago. By analyzing their size, shape, and structure, scientists reconstruct entire ecosystems, climates, behaviors, evolutionary paths. In museums around the world, skeletal reconstructions teach us about human evolution. From Australopithecus afarensis to Homo sapiens, each fossil discovery adds a brushstroke to the portrait of our species. The structure of the pelvis, the length of the femur, the curve of the spinal, these features track the story of bipedalism, brain development, and migration. In religious texts, bones often mark transformation. In the book of Ezekiel, the valley of dry bones comes to life through divine breath, metaphor for renewal and hope. In Hinduism, the cremation of bones and their immersion in sacred rivers reflects the cycle of death and rebirth. Bones, here, are not just physical remains, they are symbols of what continues. Even in language, bones are loaded with meaning. We speak of being bone-tired to describe deep fatigue, or something being in our bones to describe intuition. These expressions reflect how deeply the skeleton is woven into thought, identity, and experience. Today, 3D printing and digital modeling allow us to recreate bones in virtual space. Medical students can now hold replicas of femurs or skulls without the need for cadavers. Archaeologists can share digital skeletons with researchers across continents. Technology, once again, breathes new life into old bones. From ancient burials to modern hospitals, from sacred relics to forensic evidence, bones persist. They endure time, fire, earth, and decay. They reveal, protect, and inspire. They are silent yet eloquent, fragile yet lasting, and in their quiet permanence, they continue to tell the story of who we were and who we are. The human skeleton is a marvel of structure and function, a balance of strength, flexibility, and durability. But like all living systems, it is not immune to disease. When bones weaken, deform, or ache, the result is not only discomfort, but also disruption to the harmony of movement and support. In this section, we explore the most common conditions that affect the skeletal system, gently explaining what they are, why they happen, and how they influence the body. Consider this: your bones are not lifeless rods. They are alive, constantly remodeling, absorbing nutrients, shedding old cells, and responding to internal signals. But what happens when this quiet rhythm is disturbed? One of the most well-known skeletal diseases is osteoporosis. The word comes from Greek osteo, meaning bone, and poros, meaning passage or pore. Osteoporosis literally means porous bones. In this condition, bones lose their density, becoming thinner and more fragile. The structure remains, but the substance weakens. This is not something that can be seen from the outside. In fact, many people with osteoporosis feel no symptoms until a fracture occurs, often in the hip, spine, or wrist. Why does this happen? Bones reach their peak density in early adulthood. After about age 30, the rate of bone resorption, where old bone is broken down, can begin to outpace the rate of bone formation. In some people, this imbalance becomes significant, especially after menopause, when a drop in estrogen accelerates bone loss. Other risk factors include aging, lack of calcium or vitamin D, certain medications, smoking, and genetic predisposition. Osteoporosis is often described as a silent disease because bone loss occurs gradually and without pain. But the consequences are serious. A minor fall or bump can lead to a fracture. Spinal fractures, in particular, may cause a person to lose height or develop a stooped posture. Treatment includes medications that slow bone loss or promote bone growth, along with lifestyle changes like weight-bearing exercise, calcium-rich diets, and vitamin D supplementation. Another condition that touches the skeleton is arthritis. This term means inflammation of the joints, places where two bones meet. There are many types of arthritis, but two of the most common are osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Osteoarthritis is often referred to as wear-on-tear arthritis. Over time, the smooth cartilage that cushions the ends of bones begins to break down. Without this cushion, bones may rub together, causing pain, stiffness, and swelling. Osteoarthritis is most common in the knees, hips, hands, and spine. It tends to develop gradually and becomes more common with age. While it cannot be reversed, its symptoms can be managed with physical therapy, anti-inflammatory medication, supportive devices, and in some cases, joint replacement surgery. Rheumatoid arthritis, on the other hand, is an autoimmune condition. In this disorder, the body's immune system mistakenly attacks the lining of the joints, called the synovium. This leads to chronic inflammation, which can damage cartilage and bones. Rheumatoid arthritis often affects smaller joints, first like those in the fingers and toes, and tends to occur symmetrically on both sides of the body. Unlike osteoarthritis, it may cause fatigue, fever, and other systemic symptoms. Treatments aim to reduce immune system activity and include medications like corticosteroids, disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, and newer biologic agents. Some skeletal diseases appear early in life. Osteogenesis imperfecta, often called brittle bone disease, is a rare genetic condition in which bones break easily, often from minimal force. It is caused by a defect in the production of collagen, a protein that gives bones their flexibility. Children with this condition may experience frequent fractures, short stature, and dental issues. There is no cure, but supportive treatments include physical therapy, surgical procedures, and medications that strengthen bones. In children, another condition to consider is rickets. This disease is caused by a deficiency of vitamin D, calcium, or phosphate, and it leads to soft, weak bones. In growing children, rickets can cause bowed legs, delayed growth, and skeletal deformities. Vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption, and without it, bones do not harden properly. Rickets has become less common due to nutritional awareness and fortified foods, but it can still occur, especially in areas with limited sunlight or poor nutrition. On the other end of the spectrum is Paget's disease of bone. Its condition, typically seen in older adults, causes bones to become enlarged and misshapen. It arises from a disruption in the normal cycle of bone remodeling. In Paget's disease, bones are broken down and rebuilt too quickly, resulting in structures that are dense but disorganized and weak. The cause is not fully understood, though genetic and viral factors may play a role. Symptoms vary depending on which bones are affected and can include pain, deformity, or fractures. Treatment may involve medications that slow bone turnover, such as bismuth. In some cases, bones can be affected by tumors. While many bone tumors are benign, meaning non-cancerous, some are malignant. One example is osteosarcoma, a rare but aggressive cancer that often appears in teenagers and young adults, typically around the knee. Early signs include localized pain and swelling. Treatment usually requires a combination of surgery and chemotherapy. While rare, bone cancers serve as a reminder that even the most solid structures can be vulnerable. There are also metabolic bone diseases, such as hyperparathyroidism, where overactive parathyroid glands lead to excessive calcium being removed from bones. Over time, this can weaken the skeleton and raise calcium levels in the blood, leading to fatigue, kidney stones, and bone pain. Understanding these diseases helps us appreciate how interconnected the body truly is. Bones do not exist in isolation. Their health depends on hormones, nutrition, physical activity, and the integrity of the immune and endocrine systems. When something goes wrong in one area, it echoes through the skeleton. But it is also important to remember this: the body, even in illness, is deeply resilient. Bones break and bones heal. With the right support, they can rebuild. New treatments and technologies continue to offer hope. Genetic testing, targeted therapies, and stem cell research all promise new ways to strengthen the skeleton. As we explore the diseases that touch the bones, we do not merely list disorders. We glimpse the delicate balance that holds the body together. The skeleton is not fixed, it adapts, reacts, and responds. And even in weakness, it reminds us of the quiet strength beneath our skin. Every movement we make, whether stretching to turn off an alarm, walking across a room, or lifting a book, relies not only on biology, but also on physics. Beneath each gesture lies a quiet orchestration of force, resistance, balance, and momentum. The skeletal system, when combined with muscles and joints, forms a living framework governed by the laws of mechanics. Let us begin by imagining a single step. The foot lands, the knee bends, the hip shifts. These simple motions are built upon levers, pivots, and vectors, concepts borrowed from physics but made real in flesh and bone. The skeleton is more than structure. It is a mechanical engine tuned for movement. To understand how the skeleton moves, we must consider the basic principle of levers. A lever is a rigid bar that rotates around a fixed point known as a fulcrum. The human body uses bones as levers and joints as fulcrums. Muscles provide the force that acts upon these levers. When a muscle contracts, it pulls on a bone, causing rotation around a joint. This simple system appears throughout the body. Take the elbow joint. When you bend your arm, the biceps muscle contracts, pulling on the radius bone of the forearm. The elbow acts as the fulcrum. The hand, at the far end, moves in response. This is a third-class lever, where the force is applied between the fulcrum and the load. Although this design sacrifices mechanical advantage, it maximizes speed and range of motion, an important trade-off for tasks requiring dexterity. In contrast, when you rise on your toes, your calf muscles pull on the heel, lifting the body. Here, the ball of the foot serves as the fulcrum. The body's weight is the load, and the effort is applied at the heel. This forms a second-class lever, favoring strength over speed. Understanding these lever systems allows us to decode everyday actions. The skeleton transforms muscle contractions into purposeful movement through a delicate interplay of force and geometry. Now consider balance, a concept rooted in the body's center of gravity. In the standing position, the center of gravity typically lies just anterior to the second sacral vertebra, near the pelvis. Every shift in posture requires compensations to maintain that center over a base of support. When you lift one leg, the spine tilts and muscles engage to prevent falling. Even the smallest motion sends ripples through this balance system. The spine, in particular, acts like a segmented tower. Each vertebra contributes a degree of flexibility while bearing vertical loads. When you bend forward or twist, the spine distributes weight and stress evenly, aided by spinal curves that act like natural shock absorbers. The cervical, thoracic, and lumbar curves create a spring-like structure, balancing mobility with stability. Gait, or walking, is a rhythmic sequence of falling and catching. With each step, one leg propels the body while the other braces for impact. The skeleton must absorb ground forces and convert them into forward motion. The hip joint, a ball and socket structure, provides the rotation needed for the leg to swing. The knee, a hinge joint, stabilizes the body as weight shifts. The ankle, with its complex articulation, adjusts for uneven surfaces. Throughout this motion, physics is at play. Newton's third law: for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, explains how we push against the ground, and the ground pushes back, propelling us forward. The bones of the foot. Let us turn now to lifting, one of the most common yet biomechanically complex movements. To lift safely, the skeleton must align. To support the load, the spine must remain neutral, the hips should hinge, and the legs should provide power. When this alignment fails, when we bend from the waist instead of the hips, the vertebrae experience uneven pressure, increasing the risk of injury. This pressure can be quantified. Lifting a 10-kilogram object with poor posture can place over 150 kilograms of force on the lumbar spine. Bones are strong, but they have limits. Understanding this physics helps explain why proper body mechanics are emphasized in physical therapy, manual labor, and athletic training. Joint structure also contributes to mechanical efficiency. The shoulder joint, for example, has a wide range of motion due to its shallow socket and flexible capsule. However, this freedom sacrifices stability. The hip joint, deeper and more constrained, offers less mobility but greater support for weight bearing. These trade-offs reflect evolutionary design is shaped to serve its role in motion, friction, torque, and asterisk moment. Arms, asterisk concepts from classical mechanics so apply. When turning a doorknob, the hand acts at a distance from the axis, increasing torque. When carrying a heavy bag, the load's distance from the shoulder alters the stress placed on the spine. Carrying the same bag closer to the body reduces the moment arm easing strain. These small adjustments in posture reflect deep mechanical logic embedded in our anatomy. In sports and physical performance, this logic becomes even more apparent. A sprinter launching from the blocks uses every ounce of skeletal leverage to push against the ground. A dancer balancing in point aligns bones with exquisite precision to distribute force through the toes. An archer drawing a bow converts muscular energy into stored elastic force through the tension in limbs and tendons. Even in rest, physics governs the skeleton. When lying down, gravity still acts on the body, compressing joints and shifting fluids. The alignment of bones affects breathing, circulation, and comfort. Mattress design, posture, and even pillow height all relate to skeletal mechanics. It is easy to forget that each movement carries the legacy of billions of years of adaptation. From primitive fishes with rudimentary spines to modern humans walking upright, the skeleton has become a masterpiece of functional design. It acts not only as a structure, but as a tool engineered for motion, shaped by physics, and sustained by biology. In summary, the skeleton in motion is a silent mathematician. Each gesture, however unconscious, is an equation of angles, forces, and reactions. To walk is to solve a problem of balance. To lift is to calculate torque. To run, dance, or climb is to orchestrate mass, acceleration, and energy in perfect coordination. This quiet dialogue between bone and force is what allows us to move through space with grace, purpose, and power. The laws of physics do not oppose the body. They are the foundation upon which movement is built. Consider this: your skeleton has been with you from the very beginning. Before you spoke your first words, before you took your first steps, it was there quietly forming, growing, preparing. The weight of your thoughts, your breath, and your presence in the world. And yet, we almost never think about it. The skeleton is often taken for granted. We focus on the visible, the skin, the movement, the expressions of the face. But without the bones beneath, none of it could exist as we know it. It is, in a very real sense, the silent companion of our lives. This living frame is not rigid like stone. It is dynamic. When a child learns to walk, the bones thicken and grow stronger in response to stress. When a limb is injured, unused, or paralyzed, the skeleton changes. It reshapes to the pressures and patterns of life, much like a tree grows in response to wind and light. Your bones remember how you live, and they remember for a long time. Bone is one of the few tissues in the human body that can last centuries after life has ended. In this way, the skeleton connects the present to both past and future. Archaeologists study ancient bones, to learn how people lived, what they ate, and where they traveled. Medical students study bone structure to prepare for surgeries that restore movement and relieve pain. The skeleton is both a record and a roadmap, but more than anything, it is a foundation. It is the architecture of our humanity. Standing upright, walking on two legs, having hands free to explore the world, these are possibilities made real by the design of our bones. The curve of the spine, the bowl of the pelvis, the arch of the foot, evolved not by chance, but by necessity. These features carry the story of survival. The skull, for example, protects not just any organ, but the brain, the most complex structure known in the universe. 22 bones form its shield, each one shaped precisely, joining like puzzle pieces, locking in both strength and protection. The rib cage wraps the heart and lungs like a cradle. The vertebrae form a column flexible enough to bend but strong enough to hold the body upright. These are not random features, are part of each of us, not as foreign objects, but as living tissues, nourished by blood, maintained by cells, repaired when damaged. Every 7 to 10 years, your entire skeleton is renewed. The bones you have now are not the ones you had a decade ago. There is something deeply grounding in this fact. Even when illness touches the skeleton, or when fractures occur, the body responds with care. Healing begins almost immediately. Cells arrive, signals are sent, tissue forms. Like skilled builders returning to a familiar site, the body quietly works to restore what was broken. It is easy to forget how much of this happens without our awareness. The coordination, the effort, the precision, it all unfolds beneath the surface. And perhaps that is the most remarkable thing of all. The skeleton does not ask for our attention. It simply does its work, in silence, in support, in trust. This final reflection is not just about bone as a biological structure. It is about appreciation. Your ribs rising and falling with every breath, your spine holding you steady as you read or listen, your feet carrying the full weight of your body across each day. All of this is possible because of the silent strength of bone. Think of how the skeleton supports not just movement, but emotion. We carry stress in our shoulders, grief in our chest, exhaustion in our spine. When we are joyful, we stand taller. When we are afraid, we curl inward. The bones do not simply reflect these feelings, they hold them, they bear them gently with every passing moment. And in moments of stillness, when lying down to sleep, or sitting in quiet reflection, the skeleton does not disappear. It remains. It anchors us, not just physically, but emotionally. A reminder that we are held together, that we are structured, that there is something reliable beneath the changing waves of thought and feeling. The word skeleton comes from the Greek skeletos, meaning dried up body. In life, bone is never dry. It is alive, soaked with blood, filled with marrow, constantly renewed. It is not the end of the story, it is part of the story being told every day. In art, bones have often symbolized mortality. In medicine, represent structure. In anthropology, they are clues to our origins. But in the quiet rhythm of everyday life, the skeleton is simply your frame, faithful, responsive, and deeply yours. So now, as this journey comes to a close, you might take one last moment to feel the shape of your body, the curve of the spine, against the bed or chair, the quiet stillness of your limbs, the sense of being held together not by will, but by design. The skeleton asks for nothing, yet it gives us everything: the ability to move, to rest, to reach, to grow. It carries us through every age, every challenge, every change. And though it often remains invisible, its presence is constant. May this knowledge offer a kind of quiet awe, not of the dramatic or the grand, but of the familiar, the faithful, the foundational. Your living frame, from head to toe, is a masterpiece not just of evolution, but of everyday wonder.